So this is what I said about Walter Deming a second ago. Mark Twain, one source, one truth. Sorry about that. I just went through this whole video giving you obviously an intro of Optimus. This is our agenda, right? We're landing the plane. And this was all the questions I was saying. And we have to go through history, right? So basically, Dynamics GP used to be called Great Plains bought Solomon. Dynamics Navision bought Axapta. It became, or it was Navision Guard. Microsoft in the year 2002 acquired Great Plains. A year later, they acquired, 2000, they acquired Great Plains. About a year and a half later, they acquired Navision Guard. And through there, it's gone through an evolution. Part of it has been technology, source code, architecture, functionality. The other part has been branding. So think about if I had a Toyota Corolla, and I decided 3 years later to call it Toyota Corolla X. And then 5 years later, I decided to call it Corolla Toyota X Coal, right? At the end of the day, it's just a newer version of the original brand, the original car. So here, as you can see, and I'll let you guys read through this. Basically, Dynamics Great Plains on the right-hand side went through a rebranding called Dynamics GP. It's still called Dynamics GP. Recently, the naming from years 2012, 16, 15, 18. Now it's Microsoft is using 18.1, 18.2, 19, whenever it comes out, etc. Hint, hint, still 18. On the flip side, you'll see Business Central evolve with GP from a name to a Dynamics Nav. The other one was GP. But something happened. Microsoft branded it shortly Madeira on the cloud. And then Microsoft changed the technology and rebranded this to Dynamics 365 Business Central. So 365 BC, Business Central, 365 BC, however we want to call it, is basically Nav. So I would say this is the first defining step was in the year 2018, where the decision, so we're talking 5 years ago, back then was made not to bring Great Plains or GP to the cloud. Very important, GP does have a web user interface. It's fourth or fifth technology version in as many years. It is limited. It does not include all the functionality. You still have to install a server. GP, for all clarification purposes, what they have is a user interface that's client server or one that runs on a PC, or a web user interface. Basically, you have to install a web server, and it looks like you're working on the web, but you're not really working on the web. You're working on a local server. And very important for something to really be web, has to be responsive. Responsive means that the system adapts to your screen. So if you switch from a PC, a large monitor, to a small laptop, to a tablet, to a cell phone, you're able to transact and work the same way, just the screen adapts to it. So you can interact with the system productively and efficiently. So with that said, you also see that in 2019, 2022, AI, data intelligence, BI, Power BI embedded, etc., got embedded in Business Central. GP did not get that and will not get that. I came up with a term, I'm calling it the modern ERP. Those of you who come from retail, you've heard of MPOS or modern POS. It's basically, going from a green screen and ugly POS to something more windowish or webbish. Same thing over here. I really call Dynamics 365 Business Central BC, and I'm going to refer to it as BC throughout this presentation. But basically, BC is a modern ERP system. I love visual representations. This is me writing on a tablet, so this is actually my handwriting. So I want you guys to visualize this, right? You'll see 2018, you'll see the dates, you'll see everything moving forward. GP is not really on the Microsoft 365 roadmap. I'll say the name Microsoft 365. I'll explain it in a second. What Microsoft 365 was and is. So again, a lot of confusion here. But before we explain the differences, again, we need to understand the history, what's happened, where we're going. And this movement of stop selling GP in 2026, dumping GP, graveyard, ICU, however we want to call GP, has been in the works, as you're seeing here, since 2018. It's just become official now. That's why 5 years ago, we completely, most of our R&D, 90% of it went to NAV at that time, now BC. With that said, you'll see here the different brandings. GP stays the same, didn't change to the new Microsoft 365 branding. And you'll see AX is now 365 FinOps. FinOps is more like a full SAP, full Oracle system, complex, expensive. If you have less than 100 users, I wouldn't look that much at the FinOps side. If you have over 100 users, it's something you can explore. Optimus does have customers in BC, what used to be NAV before, with thousands of users. So BC also scales. But what FinOps does not do is scale down. BC can't scale down. What does that mean? That means that if you have 10 users or 100 users, you're still going to need a large IT infrastructure. You're going to need a lot of servers. You're going to have a lot of complexities. You're going to have the same complexities as a company who has billions USD and revenue. You'll have the same complexities as a General Motors or Ford or Nestle or anybody big. So FinOps does not scale down. BC does scale down, just like GP did. So it's a lot easier to maintain and run internally. Another visual aid here, love dates, love visual aids. So I explained that 365 AX, which is FinOps, is more on the enterprise level. You'll see where it compares to on the right-hand side. You'll see the new logos, and BC is more of a mid-market. So think NetSuite, think Acumatica, SAP Business One, although 365 Business Central has possibly 50 to 70% more functionality than SAP Business One, but SAP Business One is more lower tiered level, and the small medium market. The good thing about BC is more mid to high mid market, but it can scale down to lower. So Gabriel, how's my voice? Can you hear me over the music, or is the music too loud? So I say, let's give this a second. So this is our marketing team. I think they do a great job. So a picture paints 1,000 words, a video a million. Again, GP is a 40-year-old software. still young for my age, but anyway. Dynamics 365, yes, started at the same time as GB, so it's bringing a lot of history, a lot of functionality over the last 40 years. It's just been upgraded to the newest technologies. So it's like comparing an iPhone or a laptop 10, 12 years ago to one today. So that's the analogy I would use. So 365 full ERP, like GP. That's on the BC side. A lot of confusion. What's Microsoft 365? Again, I drew this for everybody. Microsoft 365 is a platform. It's a platform of all these technologies, by the way. Office 365 is no longer Office. It's been rebranded to Microsoft 365. Anytime soon, if you don't see it already, you're going to open up your Outlook or your Word, and it's going to say Microsoft 365. So Microsoft has been rebranding all their products to the Microsoft 365 that, let's say, is going to stay current, or that they're R&Ding or has been moved to the future platform. So when you hear Microsoft 365, it's Office, it's BC, it's 365 Dynamics, FinOps, it's Power Apps, Power BI, it has Azure in it, artificial intelligence, machine learning. BC, you can also run it on premise, before I forget, and I have a slide on that. So when you hear Microsoft 365, it's basically this tool set. Think about this as going to Home Depot, buying tool bag and filling it with a whole bunch of tools from the same company, and the drill uses the same drill bits of the same brand, and the battery, everything's battery operated now in tools, but you have to use the battery from the same brand. So basically it's and then everything's interconnected. You'll see the circles here. You'll see that Business Central are being intertwined. I have to move that in a little bit more because every version, they're more and more integrated. Microsoft's moving from an application module based system to a business based system. CRM does have a field services. That's why, and it's 100% written on CRM code. So it's 365 field services and project automation. So all of that is definitely in there. GP does not have any of that and will not have it. And that is important because without data, we have an opinion. That's why having real-time reports and dashboards is so critical, especially now with the dynamics of post-COVID. I don't want to beat that drum, but it's the truth. Post-COVID and let's say post or the new, I want to use the word world order here, but Chinese American relationships have changed, and they have changed forever. Mexico, Vietnam, Taiwan are the up and rising, Indonesia, up and rising economies. That's where most of the manufacture from China is being moved by European and American firms. So, things are changing quickly. So before we purchase something, we need real-time data from our vendors. A lot of times there's a lot of data to go through, hard for a human being to go through, error prone. So we need automation where that's done in seconds, and analysis and having that information in front of us, because let's say the container that we're importing is shipping and will be shipping in the next 8 hours. So it's all about speed and cost and data. We don't have the luxury of time as we had before. So we have the history of GP. We know where GP is not going anymore as of 2026. By the way, as of next year, GP cannot be licensed on a per user basis. It will only be subscription. We'll have the same prices as BC. So when people move over, they're already on the same pricing. So let's say changes really start happening next year on what can be bought and how it can be bought from Microsoft, and prices are gonna once again go up on the GP side of things. So that's already in writing by Microsoft. The other thing is support, maintenance, enhancement has changed. So the old way of support was what's called fixed life cycle. Microsoft supported the the two last versions, and then it went and let's say what I call a remedial support or graveyard support, which basically no bug fixes or anything. All you had was the rights to upgrade to the new system. So that's a fixed life cycle, what we're all used to, that yearly invoice from Microsoft. Microsoft went to the new modern life cycle. Basically, you have to be in the last two iterations of a product, GB or otherwise BC. If not, you're not in support from Microsoft. On the BC side is, if you're on the cloud, it's automatically, Microsoft does it. If you're on GP, you yourself or your partner needs to be doing it. It's not upgrades. It's more like patch fixes, I call it, or patches that have to be installed in your GP environment every 6 months to be on a mainstream type of version. Who's affected when, where on the GP side? Remember, I love visual aids here. So who's on the full GP support and who's on that remedial graveyard support that basically you only get rights to upgrade. So anybody, and you'll see it here, from Dynamics GP 2016 and before, well, sorry, 2023, anybody from 2018 R2 and before, there's no more mainstream support. Mainstream, again, means no patch fix it, no bug fix it, nothing. Basically, you have an issue, you call Microsoft, they'll send you to a partner, or Microsoft will, I mean, they start out with a $500 charge for them to take a look at something, and then they'll charge you $200, $300 per hour to try and fix it. So there's no patches, bugs, whatever in it, and you still have to pay your monthly fee. So that's not a good deal. The extended support, that's what I call the remedial support. That's where Microsoft, you can pay them, they'll take your call, they'll try best efforts, they'll send you to a partner. JP 2013, you'll see there, just dropped out. So nothing, nada. You call Microsoft with 2013, nothing. 2015 and forward, you can still pay Microsoft at $500. By the way, if you're not in any enhancement program, you can't even call with a $500. You can't. You're blocked out completely. So your yearly enhancements gives you rights to future versions, and there are some economic incentives to upgrade to BC. And you can still pay Microsoft to try and help you out. So, GP 2018 R2 back can do that. Most of customers right now are in 18.2, 18.3, 18.4, 18.5. Remember, I told you that Microsoft changed from using years, 2016, 15, 18, to now double digits. 18, 20, 21, 22, 23. GP is still on the 18 bandwagon, 5 years old. Visual aids, love them. You'll see what I just stated here on a timeline. You can request this after the presentation to our team. They'll be emailing anybody who's here on the call, thanking you, and you can email back and say, hey, send us that white paper Optimus did with all the visual aids so we can have them. Everything you're seeing here, I got it out of this website. Once you get this visual aid, you can click on here. This is Microsoft's website. This is, again, you can see this after you click, you come here, and it has all the documentation on dates and timelines and let's say detailed documentation on what just covered. You can read it, play my video, and you'll get it. Next thing is from this is you'll see here in red on the left-hand side, I circled something. And this is the GP website. If you come to the GP's website, you click on upgrade. First thing you get is migrate to 365 Business Central. So Microsoft, that's what they're officially recommending, and it's in writing. You can still go up to FinOps, but again, remember FinOps does not scale down. You better have money in your pockets, and you better be ready to, let's say, to support a complex system like the SAPs and the Oracles of the world. Business Central roadmap, alive, very important when you're on this new life cycle that Microsoft calls it. There's a lot of benefits. I'm going to take a second here because this is very important. Today, tomorrow, today, yesterday, until last year, for the same amount of money you paid Microsoft on yearly enhancement, you could have gotten the hosted cloud version or the on-premise version, basically at no additional charge per year. Today, if you decide to stick to BC on-premise, Microsoft does a swap. So it's like going to the Toyota dealer with a, 2005 Toyota Corolla. You give Toyota that Corolla, they gave you a 2023 new unused car, and you don't need to pay any money, and it's yours, and there's no liability. So literally, you can trade in GP for BC as long as you're current on enhancement, as long as you're current on your Microsoft maintenance. If not, you can pay penalties and you can get back on it, and some interest and the years you didn't pay. I'll say right now, Microsoft does not negotiate this. This is global standard. I had a case when I used to work at Microsoft. It was $3 or $4 million of a government that lapsed, and Microsoft basically said no. And customer said, "I'm going to go to another ERP system." Microsoft said, "Legally, we can't do it." So there is no negotiation if you stop paying your enhancement. Now, what's in it for you? So I told you, trade in the 2005 Corolla for a 223 unused, no questions asked, no money on the table. If you want to grab the hosted one or the cloud one, you get significant discounts on what you would pay if you would buy it. Most of the time, it's, I've seen it 10% of the time, 15, the same price as what somebody was paying in GP yearly enhancements. The other 80% I've been seeing out there is you're paying 10% more than what you used to pay in GP, but listen to me, you get the servers, you get additional security because all of this and spyware and ransomware and protection and cybersecurity, because this is sitting on Microsoft servers. You get on a monthly basis, Microsoft will directly go into your server and install patches for performance and bugs and some technology pipes, let's say plumbing, in there. Every 6 months, Microsoft does a minor update with new functionality in there and productivity and reports and all of that. It's not an upgrade. It's more like, one of the old patches or releases when you went from, 18.2 to 18.3 to 18.4. There's still some testing, but everything is minor. Good thing about this is before you got into a version, hardly anybody upgraded every year and a half, 2 years when a new version came out. Most people waited until their version stopped maintenance. So that's 2 versions. So most clients were upgrading at every 5 to 7 years to a new version. That means 5, 7 years ago, new functionality was launched, and you have a software that really wasn't enhanced in 7 years. With this model, monthly and specifically every 6 months, you're getting new stuff in your system that you can use in productivity. So your car never goes old. It's like every year, you go to Toyota, I'm going to take my 2023, and then they're going to give me the 2024. And then I go in 2024 and they give me the 2025 version. Zero, a little bit of mileage, but it's brand new. So you get that. You also get what's called telemetry. Best way of describing telemetry is preventive and a little bit of corrective maintenance. So using AI and, in some cases, human beings, Microsoft is monitoring your instance, your implementation, checking if it's getting slow for some reason, you got any data corruption or this and that. And they're monitoring, fixing, or giving you a heads up. So it's helping you prevent issues, your system getting slow, et cetera, et cetera. So, and for me, the biggest thing here is, well, it's bad for my business because I lose upgrade revenue. It's great for customers, but not doing upgrades anymore. Oh my God, skipping out on that. And, constantly having new functionality, new technology in your system, it's just great. So this is something also our sales marketing team put together. And by the way, Gabriel, you're here. We need to update. I'm going to send you this deck so we can update it with the new videos and everything else, and no sound on the videos. But we need to understand why this is important, right? Why this benefits your organization. So world populations, you just saw it there. Oh, by the way, we have to update that. India just surpassed China with the world's most populous country. But you'll see that social media, if it was a country, it's basically the biggest in the world. And just remember that the Facebook and Googles of the world are also owners of the Instagrams and the WhatsApp of the world. So they're even bigger. Why is this important? It's important because this is how our customers, employees, everybody is working. Take a look at this. It took the telephone 75 years to get to 15 million users. It took Angry Birds 35. It took ChatGPT even less. So the adoption of technology, and again, I'm going to hit that COVID drum. I have to. COVID. My mother, before COVID, did not know how to use Teams or Zoom. She now uses it. She comes to birthdays through it when she can't make it. So we've changed how we work, we changed how we live, but most importantly, we've changed how we communicate. So best systems, best productivity is one that you're using a system, it's calculating, it's processing, you're doing data entry, then seamlessly it's communicating with your customers, suppliers, and colleagues, saving you a lot of time. The other thing is we are going through a demographics revolution right now. China's one-person policy, one-child policy, even though it was taken out, what's happening is in China, that one kid married a one kid. Parents on both sides are still alive, even some of the grandparents. So new marriages in China right now, you have two single kids who have four parents living in their house, sometimes even grandparents. It's impossible for them to have 2 and 3 or 4 kids. So now the law in China is not the one-child policy law. You can have as many children, but people just can't afford it. So we have shrinking populations in Russia, China, Germany, Puerto Rico, all over the world. U.S. population is still growing because of immigration. Canada also, for example. But also our average age worldwide and population, it's getting older. One of it is people are living longer. The other is we've been having less kids, especially, let's say, first world countries and a lot of the emerging countries. So basically, that means less workers. So a lot of you here on the call, especially, let's say, in the US, Puerto Rico, Canada, I mean, Cayman and a lot of the islands have always had a labor shortage, finding good people. And it's hard to find people right now. Inflation is increasing wages, as you all know here. And for the next 10 years in the US, we have a deep population gap, and it has to do with baby boomers had millennials, X-Geners like me. We had the Z generation, X-Geners were a small population. So we had our kids is a small demographic generation. So I'm going to skip that video. That's Microsoft sales video. So what's happening is we need systems now that are more progressive. 3 years ago, I would talk to people about self-checkout. They would laugh at me, literally. A lot of those people have just licensed self-checkout from us. Because it's better. Today, I was talking to a customer, and they have self-checkout in the early mornings. The only thing that's working in their supermarket is the self-checkout. They have no human beings in any of the regular lanes in the supermarket. So this customer now, 20 to 30%, depending on their stores, or their sales are coming through self-checkouts and not a lane where you have a human being. And they got into this not to save on labor. They got into this because they just can't find people. So also we're working a lot with bots for accounts payable, accounts receivable. We're working a lot with bots and bank reconciliation and credit card reconciliation. So that is doing. So if somebody leaves your organization or you're growing a lot, you don't have to find labor that's no longer available. So very important, that concept, because Business Central is very workflow based. The modern workflow tools are here. They're not a GP. User interface. It's 100% responsive web interface software. Doing screenshots here. By the way, I love GP. It fed my family and myself. It made me successful. It made Optimus successful. But it's more sadness than I feel. So please don't take this like we're talking down to GP. We're not. Just the model got discontinued. The Coral X got discontinued. With that said, you'll see the look and feel with it. Those styles you see in there, a lot of them are driven also by AI. You're working out with the system in GP or in Nav, the older versions. You wanted to see your cash flow situation. You ran a cash flow report or some reports, and 2 weeks from now I'm going to run out of cash if I don't collect money, or I hit my reserves in the bank, or I move money from one bank account to another. Today, you're working on BC. Pop-up will come up to the controller. Obviously, this is security based, not the whole organization. Pop-up will say, hey, Mr. Controller, if you don't put more money in the bank, based on your collections, what's estimated forecast, AI, machine learning, all these algorithms, what you have to pay your vendors, what's due, this and that, you're going to run out of cash. So, or you're somebody in purchasing. Hey, Mr. Purchasing Manager, if you don't order this inventory item today because it takes 2 weeks to come in, 1 week, for it to clear customs, blah, 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 lead times, right? We set that up in the system before we had to run a report. You're going to run out of this inventory item pretty soon, or you have to restock it now. Obviously also using minimum and maximums and historical sales and all of that. So all of this is automatic. All of this is already embedded in the new platform, not in GP. You also get a lot of KPIs like you're seeing here, a lot of graphs embedded. These are reports, so now you don't have to go run a report, column and row report, read the data. MIT did a study, and what is it? Human brain processes images 70 times or something ridiculous, or 700 times, I forgot what it was, faster than reading text or rows and columns. So don't underestimate the power of reports and graphs and colors. Our brain reads it faster than a report, and it will pick up on details that we will not pick up while reading a text on a piece of paper or on a screen. So every 6 months you get more and more of these, so you don't even need to run reports, and obviously they're by area and by security. You get with Business Central BC mobile app. You don't get that in GP. Full web responsive. You can download the mobile app from the Google Store, iOS, et cetera, et cetera. It's for free. You enter your user. Same security as your Teams, your Office 365. Oops. It's now Microsoft 365. Let's say Outlook 365 or whatever Microsoft's going to call it next week. Sorry, Microsoft, if you're listening to this. But yes, it's frustrating. But anyway, it's one security, one ID. So for example, and I can show it for a second when I use, let me show it to everybody here. So this is me. This is not a demo environment. This is actually me working on a day-to-day basis. I just turned off my PC this morning. I'm in a hotel. So it's gonna take a little bit for Teams to pop up. But basically from Teams, Microsoft 365 and I'm accessing CRM, Business Central, 365 CRM, 365 Business Central. I have a view to my calendar. I'm chatting in here. So it's one user interface. So you're seeing all of these tiles. If I click here, I get more options and there's more and more apps that are coming online, let's say on a monthly basis. So, take a look at the apps here. See all of these apps. There's even stuff here for Salesforce, even competitors, bookings, et cetera, et cetera. So there's more and more applets, but I have one note here. So while I'm working, I come into a meeting in Teams with a client, whatever, I'm taking my notes here. You'll see here Power BI. You come to Power BI and it just opens up Power BI that I'm feeding from our CRM system and from our Business Central system. Nothing's feeding here from GP. We used to be a GP user. So this is really collaboration where we're going. One quick note, you do get unlimited users in BC through Teams. Those users are what I call a very light user. So basically, you're working with somebody who doesn't use BC in your business, or a customer or somebody, and they're on your Teams and on your domain, and you're chatting in there, hey, this payment or whatever. They can just send something from Business Central. They can post it, they can send it to a chat or whatever, and people can visualize Business Central through Teams. You don't need to be on a live session. So basically through Teams, your organization can do that. What people can't do, people who don't have a full user or a light user, is enter data in the system around reports, et cetera. But to work on a day-to-day basis, you do get those users. As I mentioned, and I have to update the slide, as of next year, GP is only subscription-based, but you don't get any cloud, you don't get any telemetry, you don't get any updates. It's, you're just paying what you have right now, but on a monthly basis. You can implement BC on-premise. You can implement it, have it full with Microsoft on Cloud for a monthly fee with the telemetry and the Azure and this and that. By the way, when you're on cloud, you don't need to buy SQL or Windows licenses. So on top of saving on the hardware, the software, the telemetry, the updates, the upgrades, and everything else, you don't need to buy any infrastructure. You can also buy your licenses on premise. You can rent them with BC and have it on AWS, have it on Google Cloud, on Azure, on Calitech, whatever you want. So, so you can have it on premise, but you can host it on the cloud. So it's kind of like I call that a hybrid type of setup. So instead of having Microsoft run it, you're running it yourself on the cloud. Obviously, it's a lot cheaper and better to do the Microsoft thing. Microsoft does have economies of scale, millions of customers on this, so nobody's going to be able to to beat Microsoft's offering. Software as a service, as I mentioned already, you can what's happening with prices and how it works and the whole telemetry and everything else. Upgrades already, interfaces, already explained all of that. Again, I built this, so it's also a white paper. Machine learning, Azure, I mean, your You do get that in Business Central, not in GP, I've stated there. This is basically, you'll find it here in the white paper. It's a quick demo of machine learning, how it works and how it's embedded in BC. And it's a tool made for your IT department to be able to create different machine learning scenarios. Remember, your system learns something, you can get better reports, insights out of it. Not available in GP, it's only available in BC. It's embedded, it's part of what you already are paying monthly to Microsoft. So, you know, I forgot to mention that you also get machine learning and AI with a cloud version of Microsoft, which is already cheaper, economies of scale. The integration with Office 365, this is deep integration where your contacts in Business Central is actually syncing with Outlook, right? Without having to install applets or programming or build integrations and this and that. So, you know, this is just a quick example. The setups are how you send emails and how it's integrated to Office 365. It's completely transparent in Business Central. Integration to Power BI, we already went through that. Power BI is integrated as a service versus in GP, you have to do manual links and you have to use a connector, which is not always stable or efficient and robust. With Business Central, you do. The 365 CRM, you'll see out of the box existing integrations. This works. Not saying it's going to cover your requirements 100%. A lot of times we do need using that same bridge, integration bridge, add some fields to what customers want, but it's in there. It's not in GP. And I'm just going to go through this. I think this is cool. There's a PayPal extension to Business Central. We demo it, we implement it. It's basically out of the box. With GP, Microsoft did not take it on e-commerce. Most customers went through third parties that have proprietary or closed platforms, Sana Commerce, K-Commerce, et cetera, et cetera. Microsoft went with, you know, primarily Shopify and Magento. With Shopify, they went a step further where there is an out-of-the-box integration with Shopify and your BC environment. What I've learned during the years is customers, the marketing department typically chooses their e-commerce platform, and then they come to IT and says, hey, integrate this, right? And most of the battles in e-commerce are won by the sales and marketing department. I think this is a great way where Microsoft and Shopify have appeased this. This integration is done directly by Shopify and Microsoft Direct employees. This is not a third-party integration. Development tools, this is night and day. Optimus still has dexterity programmers. So yeah, we do dexterity and eConnect and all of that, but dexterity, hardly everybody did it, and it's basically going to the source code. By the way, we also did a one-time source code development for GP. Business Central uses more of an extension, a hub and extension. So, you know, think about a circle with a lot of rings around it, or Saturn. You develop on the rings. So every time Microsoft is installing those monthlies, and every 6 months, it doesn't, you know, they can do the upgrade, and then you just, if you follow the development methodology, most developments should just naturally move over, as long as you're following that. The programming language of BC is part of .NET. GP, none of them are, and you can use .NET and Visual Studio to do some stuff for GP, but it's never inside. Or GP doesn't have this ring philosophy either. So when you're in the ring philosophy, you're using the same screens and workflows and everything else within Business Central. The development language, what takes somebody 40 hours in GP, Most of the time we can do it in 8 to 12 hours. So it's a lot more efficient, easier, and you can do a lot more. And this is for the IT people out there and in development. So functionality, the biggest difference between GP and Business Central, and I'm going to talk to this and just switch slides, give you a couple of seconds to read through them. And again, you can request this. The biggest difference, I would say, is here's a licensing, right? What I was talking about. So now GP is going to be $70 or more next year, but you don't get the hosting, telemetry, AI, you don't get any of that. But the biggest difference, I would say, comes in number one, manufacturing. Business Central is night and day to GP, a lot more robust. Both of them, as you're seeing here, have the essentials and package, which is a starter package GP, and it also has premium or the extended pack. Follows the same licensing philosophy. So basically, if you manufacture, you have field services, you manage projects, or you need project counting, you have to go to the GP extended pack premium package over here. I've been finding a lot of customers over license where in GP they had extended pack and they didn't do it. And good thing is when we migrate to BC, we can go essentials, and our customers, that's a 20% of the cases where they don't pay anything, or their payments on a yearly basis is the same what they paid in GP. I'm also finding people who are NAV, the old version, on-premise version, moving to the cloud. So, it's the same methodology. On a project accounting, they're pretty much equal. We see a little bit more functionality, but it does have the development tools. And in project accounting, a lot of times you need to get creative. As I told you, MRP, MPS, manufacturing, night and day, warehouse management, Business Central, GP were tied 4 or 5 years ago. Now Business Central is about 20%, 30% more robust in inventory and warehouse management, and purchasing and minimum and maximums and replenishment. Plus, add to the fact the Power BI out of the box embedded tools and the machine learning and the AI. That's big for inventory management, where system pops up and say, hey, you have 5 boxes of milk that are going to expire in 2 days, better get rid of them, right? So they control that control. Just throwing some examples out there in different industries. Both GP and Business Central, user-friendly systems, low barriers of entry as users, as consultants. Business Central is, I wouldn't say more complex, I would say more sophisticated. Not all of my GP consultants were able to move to BC. Because they had already topped out, let's say, and their skill set on the GP side of things. On a customer standpoint, it's easier to maintain. It's more user-friendly. It does a lot more. But let's say the mechanics, it's like saying, hey, my Toyota Corolla 2005, any mechanic can work on it. My 2023 Toyota Corolla, I have to take it to a certified Toyota Corolla mechanic because it has motherboards now, it has a whole bunch of electronics, and that old mechanic that have been working for me or giving me service the last 30 years, where carburetor was a carburetor, motor was a motor, that's no longer the case, right? So very similar scenario here. It's impossible for a GP consultant to grab a manual and implement this by he or she or their selves. So, basically, how we do it is when we transition somebody, they shadow our consultant, our experienced consultant. And the way we got into this was we just bought 2 companies that have been doing NAV for the last 15 years, about 5 years ago. And we brought in all that IP into our organization. Very important, Business Central has free learnings, free classes. I train a lot of my consultants through here, the newbies. And then the experienced ones give them, let's say, the additional deeper training. But for customers, it's great online trainings. By the way, Optimus provides free trainings on a weekly basis on Business Central, LS Retail, on the 365 platform, on CRM every single week to our customer base. So if you're a customer of ours, send us an email and you can get free workshop trainings, free trainers coming and providing this online. We've been doing this now for some years now. I think we've surpassed 400 trainings that we recorded over the years. So we invest a lot. We're very heavily vested in having open source knowledge with our customers. Knowledge base, GP, basically it's inside of the software is the help me venue. Business Central has a lot bigger knowledge base. You do get a trial with Business Central, it's 30 days. But if you don't know the system, downloading a software and playing around with it, having a sandbox, there is some benefit, but it's not going to take you that far. Data migration tool. So this is where it gets interesting. GP is not an upgrade, but it's not a re-implementation. We've been doing this for years. We have customers, multiple countries who've already moved either from Nav on-premise to the BC version or GP to the BC version. I can tell you sincerely out of my heart, I have not had one GP customer that has moved to BC saying, I want to go back. So it's been a great experience on the customer side. None of our consultants who move from GP to BC want to go back to GP. And we have various tools to migrate data. Depends your industry, depends what level of detail you want to migrate over. Microsoft says they have something that's, so this is, again, I'm going to go to Home Depot. I have a tool bag. It has screwdrivers, it has hammers, it has drills, etc. in it. When you migrate this, the hammer can't do everything. You're going to need a whole bunch of the tools. So what Microsoft has is limited, it's basic, it's buggy. So we use some of it, but in order to do a proper, I call it hybrid, which is a hybrid upgrade and migration hybrid. So in order to do this type of upgrade, migration hybrid, it is a combination of a couple of tools over the years. We've developed also templates to do this and other tools. So again, it's a tool bag. I like something which is Rapid Start and BC. So think about Integration Manager, but this is a lot easier and you can use it throughout all the modules. Integration Manager in GP was limited to some functionalities or modules. And, on the fly, you can create these rapid starts to import, export data. You can use it for an implementation integration. You can also use it on your day-to-day business. Let's say you want to send something to a supplier or a customer, receive it. You can create this. It's a user-friendly tool. Not everybody in the organization can use it, but you don't need a programmer or somebody in IT to do it. So a lot of our customers, they do their own rapid starts. So I'm not going to really go through that. Case study, GP moving over, Freshmart. They were using basically all the modules in GP. They moved over their whole business to BC. Their e-commerce is not Shopify. They went with NupCommerce. So the 5 big ones are WooCommerce, BigCommerce, NupCommerce, Shopify, Magento. I can tell you 90% of the customers in the Americas, US, let's say North America, US, Canada, and the Caribbean, 90% are going with Magento and Shopify. It just makes more sense. So Shopify and Magento have different strengths and weaknesses. Shopify is for smaller customers who are not going to do a lot of coding or changes to how Shopify already works. Magento for me is customers with more complex processes, products, and they want to develop and they want to take it let's say, to another level. Both are great. It just depends on your requirements. We don't sell neither of them. We just connect to them. We have the connectors to them. So I get a lot, if it broken, why fix it, right? And I'll, again, this goes back to my emotional attachment to GP. It goes back to the video that I showed you, with the Angry Birds and 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 the top 10 quote unquote countries in the world where digital transformation has gone. It's not going, has gone. My mom using Zoom, and things have changed, right? And yes, GP may not be broken, but here are great examples of companies who thought the same thing. If it ain't broken, why fix it? Where's Yahoo now? Where's BlackBerry now? Where's Toys R Us now? Toys R Us, when they finally opened their eyes and went e-commerce, and then they did it halfway, not full way. It was too late for them. Amazon and Walmart with e-commerce basically took Toys R Us out of the game. Kodak took too long to go digital on cameras. So, bottom line is, yeah, GP is not broken. I do agree with you, but it is outdated and it does not support the way we do business. So when the carriage and the car, went into, let's say, historical transformation, people back then used to say a carriage without a horse, and they used to laugh at it, just like people laughed at me because of self-checkout SEO, right? But history changes, economies transform the way we transform, right? And if now we're to a point where in a lot of markets, Amazon is already testing self-driving little vehicles that deliver to your front step. So, want to share something here? So Steve Ballmer just said on Prime News, making fun of the iPhone because it didn't have a keyboard. It wouldn't work with businesses, right? Wasn't broken back then for Steve, and thank God for Satya now. And um, so basically, again, things have changed, right? And we do need a platform to work with it. So this platform takes us in GP. A lot of times we find ourselves running a business and making decisions without having all of the data or the real-time data in front of us, opinion, because the reporting tools, the technology tools are limited. We saw how BC manages all of that on a real-time basis. The other thing is in GP, we used to or use a lot of ISVs. Over at the BC side, we do need less ISVs. A lot of the ISVs and GP have moved to BC, so you can, if you want to continue with them, you can save on that because obviously they're now on the newer platform. And by having a more modern technology, you can have more of your business running out of the same database, tools, AI, and one source, one truth. So again, it is hard moving from GP. I'm not going to downplay it. It ain't broken. I'm not going to downplay that. But things have changed. Microsoft could not invest in a whole bunch of platforms. The way GP was architected 40 years ago, dexterity and hint, the system really didn't have a chance, right? It's like, I don't know, buying a building that's 300 years old and in New York City, and then an architect coming out of with these concepts, but the original foundation of the building, cannot hold 5 more stories. So you either have to knock down the whole building, then build it from scratch, or you adapt to the foundation of that 300-year-old building. So GP's foundation was did not and could not translate to modern technologies, communications, and way of doing business. Its functionality was great. So I'm not going to take away from that, but Microsoft's not going to build anything more in there. So, BC is a good platform. The path is there. It's not like moving from GP to SAP. It's a lot smoother moving to BC. And with that, I conclude my presentation. So I'm going to open this up to questions for everybody.